As a woman, if you're dealing with 50-50 men and you're like, look, I'm not gonna, I have standards. Like, I'm a lady, I'm classy. If you want to take me out, you got to be willing to take me out and treat me like a lady.
No, I agree about having standards.
iPhones are pretty expensive, right? Like, I could buy a cheap Android phone for like $200. If I go into the Apple store and I'm like, I could get this Android phone for $200. How about you give me that for $500? They're just going to laugh at you. They're like, no, this is the price. You can't negotiate the price of an iPhone, not 1 cent. They won't come down 1 cent. They're not going to give you 1 penny off, not even 1 penny off. That's why it's so coveted and considered high value, because it does not lower the price.
No,
and so
I
as a
agree.
woman, if you're dealing with 50-50 men and you're like, look, I'm not gonna, I have standards. Like, I'm a lady, I'm classy. If you want to take me out, you got to be willing to take me out and treat me like a lady. Right? Like, if you have that standard, then then what's going to happen is some of those 50-50 men, they're going to be 50-50 with other women. They're not going to be 50-50 with you, because they're going to be like, yeah, I could get the Android phone, but I really want this iPhone. It looks a lot better. It's a lot more quality. Yeah, I'll pay them more money for that. Getting back to the younger women and how do you keep a man, right? So this kind of comes down to kind of what we were talking about the other day too, is that if you are just young and hot, a lot of men will want to sleep with you. Right. A lot of men will spend money on you and fly you out to places. They're not bringing you home to mom. That's not what they're doing. So,
or even wifing you up.
Right. They're not doing that because they think less of you, actually, because you're promiscuous, because they can fly you out and like they can buy you. Right.
Well, it's exactly what I just said about the guy who was like, I won't even date a girl that I've slept with on the first date.
Yeah, now
that's, I
don't agree with that, but I get it. Yeah.
But it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same
mindset.
It's a mindset. It's the mindset, right?
It's like, I want to get this, but if you give it to me, I'm going to think less of you.
Right.
Like, that's the same thing.
But everyone has that mindset. If something is easily gotten, we assume it's of low value. Everyone has that mindset. So what I was saying is that as a woman too, because we were talking about this, is that if you have some of the feminine characteristics, like we're talking specifically in your case, you're like, oh, well, no good man came around. And I get that. But if you had more of the feminine characteristics that you have now, you probably would have attracted more of those kinds of men, because you attract what you put out, right? And so if you're a woman who is more promiscuous, who's always going out to nightclubs and flying out to wherever, you're going to attract those kind of guys. You're not going to attract the guy that is very high quality, or you might attract him just for a night. He's going to see you in a different light. He sees you as something to use instead of someone to actually date seriously. And so how you take yourself seriously will determine. And then that brings us into the qualities, right? So it's not enough to just be hot and young as a woman. You, especially when you're young, you need to be developing qualities of being feminine, of having some substance behind you that's going to engage a man in a conversation.
You can't rely strictly on how you look, because that's the thing here too. We're all going to get older.
Right.
Like, and it is a hard pillow to swallow, because when we were talking about it, we can't control that.
Right. Yeah.
We can't control that at all. And it is hard as a woman to hear that your value goes down when you reach a certain age.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the thing is that you do have to have substance, because yes, looks will get a guy to look at you and maybe approach you.
Right.
But the things that come out of your mouth and who you are as a person keeps him around, which is what we're talking about. Yeah. Young women rely way too heavily on just being young and beautiful, or making themselves as beautiful as they can while they're young, and thinking, well, I'm hot, so I don't have to do anything else, or like men will just fawn over me, and they will. But if you want a good man and you want a good relationship, you have to have more to you than those things, because you'll only attract the superficial relationship if you're just focusing on the superficial.
Exactly. Yeah. The things are important, like I said, for the attraction, to have the selection. But then, because a man is going to say to any woman that he would seriously date or wife up, what value does she add to my life? It's not the same as what did you bring to the table? That's a bad question. But internally, he should be asking what value, like, why is my life better because I'm with this woman? And if it's because she's hot and young and I can have sex with her, that's not a really good reason, because there's a lot of those, right? So it's like, well, why would I need to have her stay in my life, right?
Well, that's why a lot of men don't settle down.
Because that's replaceable. Yeah, young and hot is replaceable. Every day there's a new batch of young and hot,
but substance is not.
But yeah, exactly.
Who you are as a person is not.
And so if you've worked on other qualities and attributes, and especially being more feminine, which is rare for men to find, because that's what men complain about today is that women are so masculine. Women act like this. They don't need a man. They're so feminist and all these things. But if you can be that, you're gonna get a lot further with a guy wanting to commit to you, a higher quality guy, because that's what he's looking for.
But how do you be feminine with 50-50 men? And there's a huge majority of those men. Not talking about the 1% because they do tend to be more traditional.
By having standards.
No, I agree about having standards.
iPhones are pretty expensive, right? Mm-hmm. Like I could buy a cheap Android phone for like $200, right? But the iPhone, what's the price now? It's like $900, $1,200, something like that. If I go into the Apple store and I'm like, I could get this Android phone for $200. How about you give me that for $500? They're just gonna laugh at you. They're like, no, this is the price. You can't negotiate the price of an iPhone, not 1 cent. They won't come down 1 cent. I'm pretty sure if I go into, I'm pretty sure I can negotiate an Android phone down some numbers, right? Depending on where I buy it from. But the iPhone, not 1 cent. If you say just 1 penny off, they're not going to give you 1 penny off, not even 1 penny off. My point is that that's why it's so coveted and considered high value, because it does not lower the price.
No,
and so as a woman, if you're dealing with 50-50 men and you're like, look, I have standards. Like, I'm a lady. I'm classy. If you want to take me out, you got to be willing to take me out and treat me like a lady. If you have that standard, then what's going to happen is some of those 50-50 men, they're going to be 50-50 with other women. They're not going to be 50-50 with you, because they're going to be like, yeah, I could get the Android phone, but I really want this iPhone. It looks a lot better. It's a lot more quality. Yeah, I'll pay them more money for that. That's how it is. It's what you train people how to teach you. So what standard do you set for yourself? That's why also the promiscuity ties into it as well.
No, I agree.
If you be gotten for a cheap price, you're going to be gotten for a cheap price.
Well, the standards are the most important thing, but you have to have substance before you have standards.
Yeah.
Because you're not bringing anything of value besides your youth and your beauty, and that's not enough, as we've made it well known. So you have to establish substance, figure out who you are, try to be as feminine as possible. It is hard when you're a single woman to be uber feminine, but have those feminine qualities. But also I used to tell my friends when I went out that I wouldn't even accept a drink from a guy that I wouldn't even be kind of remotely interested in, because I don't want things from men that I don't have any interest in, because that seems very shallow and like greedy. I don't know what word to describe it.
You're still being bought in that case.
Right, exactly. And it's like, I don't want a free thing just because it's free. But plenty of friends that I had would be like, no, take the drink, he's offering. And like, sure, like someone's offering you something, it's a gift, whatever. But also at the same time, I don't feel good about myself. If I took something from somebody that I know I have no intention of talking to, I'm not interested in, I don't even want to be friends with you, like, you're just some random guy at a bar. Like, yes, that's nice. I'd say thank you, but no thank you. Like, I'm not interested. But
and that's your character.
But you should have those standards even in those instances of free stuff. Like, don't go on a trip with a guy you're not interested in, or take things from a guy you're not interested in, or even if they're offering it to you and they're like, no, I swear, like, you don't even have to talk to me. That's even more sad, to be honest. Like when a guy's like, no, you don't even have to continue to talk to me. It's like, just have the standards.
Tell the man you're better than that.
Right.
Like,
no, I would have.
Like, you're better than that. Like, no, you go.
Save your money for a girl that's going to hang out with you for the rest of the night.
You're a good guy. Don't treat yourself like that. No. And that's having character. And then here's the thing is like, because people see things, there's subtle cues. You get a drink from a guy you're not interested at the bar, a guy that you are interested in, that's a higher quality man, he sees you with the drink. You know what I mean? Or he sees that interaction. This guy bought you a drink. You're not talking to him. Okay. So that's a signal, right? Okay. This woman just going to take drinks from guys. Like it's a character, it might be a subconscious thing. Or hey, you go and some guy flies you out and you're not interested in him. And then you have some pictures on your Instagram from your trip to France, and some guy that you are interested in says, oh, when did you go to France? And she's like, oh yeah, some guy. It wasn't, I didn't really like him or anything. It was like,
she's being honest, but at the same time, it's not a good look. Yeah.
Like you might not, even if you didn't have sex with him, you're still being bought because your character, your integrity was compromised.
Well, because you're doing something with someone that you don't even like, or you're only doing it to benefit yourself. That impacts your character, like you said. And you should, if you have standards, you should maintain those no matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're on a date, doesn't matter if you're at the club, doesn't matter if you're at the grocery store. You should have the standards that you have, and you shouldn't be taking from people that you know that you wouldn't talk to anymore, or that you're not genuinely interested in. I'm not saying that if you see a guy and, you know, maybe he physically isn't what you'd be interested in, but the way he approached you and he had some good game and he was like, let me buy you a drink or something.
Yeah, that's
that
fine.
He now persuaded you because you're like, oh, his charm and like how he handles himself is making him more attractive. I'm not saying you can't do that. But if you're just taking things from people, from men, because they're giving them to you because you're young and beautiful, you're just as much the problem as these guys just giving you things that you didn't earn. So have the standards, especially if you're looking for a relationship, you need to have the standards. You need to learn what you do and you don't want, what you will and you won't tolerate, all of those things. And that's why a lot of people say, you know, oh, you need to be by yourself and on your own before you're in a relationship. It's because a lot of these women, these young women, haven't even really discovered or developed these things about themselves. And luckily, there is more content, like I said, empowering women to be more than just how they look. And I think that's a good thing, because I think when we didn't have that, it was a lot, and it still is, you know, a lot of women who are just young and beautiful and they're just doing whatever they want and they don't have to develop who they are until they're older. And then, like you said, they might have missed out on having a better quality man when they were younger because they were just lollygagging and didn't develop themselves. Like, you don't have to be perfect. And what I always try to stress to women is that if you're dating correctly, you will also develop yourself as a person. You'll develop your standards. You'll develop how you want to treat people because of how you want to be treated back. And all of those things. Like, if you're dating correctly and interacting with people, you should be learning things about yourself, about what you want in a partner, and about just life in general. Like, it's all a learning experience. And embrace who you are. Like, the quirky things about you, you can use in your favor in the right way. Because there are a ton of beautiful women. There are a ton of young, beautiful women. But what makes you stand out amongst those women? Or even sometimes a man chooses you over, like, even if you're not the most beautiful or young, a man chooses you over those things because of what we're talking about, the substance. And the irreplaceableness of being you.
Because young and hot is easily replaceable.
Like you said, there's a new crop coming in, new bus coming every 15 minutes. So
that's what we used to always tell the guys, be like, we just keep getting older, but the 18-year-olds just keep on staying the same, or the 20-year-olds keep on staying the same, or whatever. So
oh my gosh.
But that, I mean, but it's true. But that's how the guys think, right? It's like, I'm giving you the secret tech, you know, like, this is really the behind the scenes. But